All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Autonomy podcast. And today I'm welcomed by Ramesh. How are you, man?
I'm good, Jody. Thanks for having me on. I'm quite excited to see where we go with this.
I'm really excited to have you on one of these calls because I can see, man, your goals and I can see your progress so far. It's massive. Looking at your progress, we have lost now around 40 pounds. We're talking about 21 kilos. That is massive, man. How are you feeling?
I feel amazing. I also slightly pinch myself every now and again and go, have I actually done that? Have I shortcutted this without realizing it? Because I don't have a history of knowing how to lose weight and holding it down. So I don't take it for granted. I try and enjoy this for what it is. But going into my 40s now, and I say that this is probably the best I felt as far as I can remember. You know, taking out the youth out of it, because youth is a cheat game anyway. Once you take that out of the equation, yeah, this is the best I've ever felt in my life.
That's massive, man. Really great to hear that. I think like you started around end of October. So that was around Diwali and Christmas coming and all of these holidays rolling. So how did you feel you managed to keep up with all of everything going on?
It's a good question, yes. My birthday normally falls in and around Diwali time, and I was kind of staring that in the face, and my friends joke, they say, oh, Ramesh is having a midlife crisis, and I'm like, maybe it is, but I encourage midlife crisis if this is what it looks like. But I kind of sat there in and around that period, and I just didn't feel great about myself, and I hadn't felt that great about myself in such a long time, where you get used to not feeling great about yourself. I've got 2 young kids. I have a stressful life, but I encourage that stress, and I've done well in my career and stuff, and I just sat there and I thought, now, let's do it now. I've got to do something. And I remember contacting Nathan literally like 5 days before Diwali, being like, let's go now. And I'm so glad I did, because yes, it's hard. You're fighting the tide. You're trying to make a change when everything is almost encouraging itself to say, no, consume, enjoy, you can wait, you can wait. My biggest learning with all of this is if you find the strength to do the hard things during those times where more and more people actually are more relaxed about these things, if you find a way to do that, you build this unbelievable momentum where I look around me, everyone, 1st of January, trying to start something. And I carried that momentum through that really tough period. December was even harder because I had introduced running into the equation, and it gets cold and dark in the UK pretty quickly for those of you somewhere else. And I felt like I just springboarded myself into 2025, and I've just carried this momentum through. And I think that's a major learning for me, not just from a physical point of view, but for any life goal point of view. I'm not waiting for January. Being able to start that time and carry it through, the momentum has been incredible, and it's been a big part of where I've got to so far.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And that's amazing, like to have that mindset as well, to be able to like, you know what, I'm going to start right now. I'm going to do it right now, right?
Yeah, I think the mindset was really important. I needed to be very intentional, and I needed my why to be really strong.
True.
And there was a few things with it. I think apart from my own personal feelings of myself, last few years I've kind of wrestled with losing my mum through
Sorry to hear that.
cancer. And thank you. And I use food as emotional eating. I'm not the only person.
Yeah.
I think I've heard a lot of people on the show who food
True.
was the crutch to get you through something. And then I had a couple of little kids who are getting older, and I didn't look after myself during that period either. And it was starting to catch up with me. I am at the back end of my 30s going into 40s, but my body probably felt about a decade older. I was, not sleeping well, eating too much, eating bad food, too much caffeine, not enough exercise, not enough balance, and it was showing its signs. And I said to myself, my mum lived a very healthy life. She ate well, she had her weight under control, and life throws things at you sometimes that
Sure.
you just can't plan for. But if I got sick because of something I did to myself, my kids wouldn't forgive me, and rightly so. And I was like, I can't allow that to happen. So my convictions and my intention has been so clear to me, and that has helped me during those tough times, because everything's a wave, right? When you get results and you get momentum, this feels easy. Then you hit those moments where you're not getting the results, you're feeling fatigue, you start questioning why. And the one thing that I can say up to this point, and it's been really powerful for me for this period, and I'm not going to let it go, is I have never questioned my motivation. Once I had it, and it was really, really key that I got that bit right, the mental part right, I think that's allowed me to be the rock in actually what is everything around me has changed too. I had to change so much, but this part had to stay still, and it has, and I think it's been a big reason for the results I've got.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And having that big why is always as a driver for us to keep going, pushing forward. So that actually leads me to my next question, Ramesh, is what did you feel like you struggled with before joining Autonomy from all aspects, let's say nutrition, lifestyle, dedication, accountability, all of that?
Yeah, great question, right? It's the $1 million question. And I think I'll start by saying I'm a big believer that we lie to ourselves, genuinely lie. We lie to ourselves so well we believe it. And I am a born and raised vegetarian, and I look at it now, my overconsumption of fat and carbs is disgusting, right? It was kind of meal after meal of it. I think the balance wasn't there. I had long periods, because I played sports throughout my life. life, and especially when I was younger. And I had this mindset of, yeah, look, you know what? I can run it off. I can do this. I can do that. And that might have been true when I was 23, 24, but I kept that mindset all the way through my 30s. And that clearly wasn't true because the scales have shown I've never lost weight in that period. I've just gained it incrementally. So I kind of had ups and downs of working outside. I had this horrible mindset of thinking that because I worked out, I could kind of eat what I wanted. I would eat badly in the sense of, it wasn't that food was always bad, but I would just overconsume. I think I come from a family of not naturally sporty people, probably on the bigger size. And in my own family, I wasn't considered big, which is a fallacy if you want to kind of set up that kind of environment where your aunties are saying, oh, you could eat more, you're thin. I'm like, oh, you're slim. I wasn't slim. I was just slim in comparison to them. I've always focused on my career and trying to burn the candle on both ends at the cost of balance, at the cost of understanding that you can't continue a lifestyle that's healthy where you go out in the evening and you splurge and you work hard and you might skip meals and then you overcompensate and you eat what's in front of you and you indulge on certain things too much because you think you've earned it because you work really hard. But actually, use the example of you can't keep eating pizza and not have consequences. But in my head, I thought I could dodge the consequences. And I also picked up a lot of injuries playing sports when I was younger. And I was convinced that I can't work out 2 days in a row. My shoulder can't handle it. My knee can't handle it. I believed all of these things to be true. And so I feel like brainwashed myself into saying all these things that you genuinely believe are true, that you've told yourself is true, they're not. So actually had to break my own preconceived ideas down, trust in the process, trust in Nathan, he's got a way. I love the bluntness of Nathan and the way he puts things. But there's something with that Gauss accent of his when I think there was one day early on, and honestly, it was the best thing for me. I was playing down how big I was, and he kind of step by step broke down how fat I really was. And I kind of needed to hear that. I needed somebody to pop that. Then after that, I had to trust the process. You don't come onto a program like this if you carry your own preconceived ideas forward. You've got to be willing to be a good student. I've always been that in my professional life, and I was like, it's time I put this into this world, and that's probably where it all started, to be honest.
That's awesome to hear, man. What did you feel like Nathan and Autonomy offered you to help you be on track?
Yeah, really good question. I'll start by what I think is a really important IP of Autonomy in total, which is anyone who had ever kind of spent time with in this space would always start off by saying, look, you've got to cut out the foods you're eating. Like, you've got to cut it out. This food, this vegetarian Indian diet, you're never going to get your goals. I was starting to believe I was going to have to dump this, but I didn't want to because it's such a huge part of my cultural identity. I love food. Yeah. It's my connection to my family. It's my connection to even my mum, even though she's not here. Like, she taught my dad how to cook before she passed away, and my dad's learned how to cook some of these dishes. And I'm like, it's too important for me to not have these things in my life. And again, having this English guy from Liverpool talk to me about South Indian food and how I can keep eating that and lose weight, I think that was a huge, refreshing voice to have that, because you just don't hear that too often. And then I think Nathan's been really good on the kind of linking the cerebral, the mental side to the physical. He really invested time in understanding what I was trying to do and why, and bring those two elements together. So this is not a fitness game. This is not a food game. This is a life game. And all of these pieces have to fit together. And he's been really good at that. And I think I hold myself very accountable now because I've done a lot of the work. But anytime I slip from my own level, he's quick to call me out in a good way, in a positive way. I think I maybe need less accountability held against me than some people who maybe haven't got that sort of, they're not on the same journey yet as I am. But I'll tell you what, like, he reminds me I said this was important, and therefore he doesn't let me get away with it. And also, we talk about things that have nothing to do with fitness or food, and he understands that other pressures in life can actually play a role in all of this. And I treat him a little bit like my shrink every now and again as well. So it's great. Like, I've only known him since October, but it's felt like I've known him for years. He definitely knows a lot about my life, a lot more than I thought I'd be sharing, but it feels very comfortable. And it's great because I'm a bit hand-tied sometimes. When you got a 4-year-old and a 1-year-old running in different directions, texting is not easily done. And I drop him voice notes at like all sorts of hours, and this guy's probably listened to hours of me chatting about how I'm feeling this week, and he turns that into really positive conversation. So it feels like partnering with somebody. It wasn't what I was expecting in the beginning, but it's been such a huge part of trying to make this work. And I think that's been big, because having someone just tell me, you can't eat this, you can't eat that, you must eat this. This is a platform of options, and I have to live with the consequences. And that's completely good with me, because it means that I can really build the kind of behaviors that mean one day I will do this for myself. I won't need Nathan there every day, and I can see the road to a sustainable future on it. So that's also really exciting, that this is not a flash in the pan, like, oh look, Ramesh lost 21 kilos in 5 months, and then 4 months months later put half of it back on. I don't see that as my future, which is really, really quite incredible thing to be.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And certainly makes total sense to have that rapport with the person that you're working with, because the more confident you feel in that person, the more you will be sharing as well. Like you said, sometimes like we perceive our weight loss journey as only like, oh, it's food and exercise, but there's so many aspects, there's food, there's exercise, there's sleep, there's water, there's stress. All of these factors play a huge role in our journey, because at the end of the day, you want to be healthy. That's the goal of the journey. And speaking about health now, Ramesh, you are right now a Ramesh who has lost 21 kilos. We're talking about 71 kilos now versus 92 kilos when you first started. What is the difference? Like you described to me at the beginning of the call, how you felt before. How do you feel now? How do you compare that Ramesh who was 5 months younger than this Ramesh right now?
That's a great question. Somebody said something to me recently. They said, oh, well, you know your body best. And I was like, no, that's not even remotely true, because this body I'm in now, it doesn't feel like a body I know. I don't understand my potential is here, because every time we've had like this transformation or my body's evolved during this period, it's like I'm learning it for new. So starting point is 5 odd months ago when I started with Nathan, I was just dabbling in the gym, bit of cardio, bit of weights, you know the deal, trying to convince myself I can get some show muscles and hide all the fat. But right now I'm training for a marathon. I mean, 50 days time, I'm running a marathon, 42 kilometers. And I've always said to myself, I can only run once or twice a week, because my knees used to blow up, I had a lot of inflammation, I've had knee surgery in the past. I'm running 5 times a week now, on top of doing the workouts that Nathan prescribed. This week is a 75 kilometer block. It's sometimes I pinch myself and go, you weren't running in October. I mean, I have run in the past, but I was not running at all in October. And I'm doing volume at the moment. And, actually Nathan occasionally says to me, your performance has dipped, you need a break. And I've possibly gone to an obsessive level, but sometimes work out twice a day because my body feels like it needs it. I feel like I've taken years off my body. And I don't need a doctor to tell me that. I can feel it. I've stopped snoring, which my wife is more grateful for than you can imagine. I told Nathan one day, I'm either going to stop snoring because I've lost weight, or she's put a pillow over my face and ended it for me. But it was, my sleep is erratic because I have small children. The quality of my sleep has gone up exponentially. My recovery after working out has gone up exponentially. I take less caffeine now than ever. I used to rely on caffeine to just get through the day. I like the way I look. None of my clothes fit. That's lovely. Aesthetically, it wasn't like the be all and end all, but every time I see people who I haven't seen for a few months and they look at me, what have you done? It reminds me, actually, it is drastic what I've done, but it hasn't felt drastic because I've seen the process. And actually, in many ways, this is something that I truly believe in, is results are the results. And there'll be weeks where you don't think you worked that hard and you see unbelievable results. And there are other weeks where you're like, I did everything perfectly, and the scales and the photos look like I haven't done anything. And so to be less results orientated, I've put a heavy emphasis on the process. That week where it didn't quite go to plan, that happened. And then it's about just rolling on to the next week. So I think all of that's been great. I also think the mental clarity, I wasn't expecting that, to just feel like I can perform better in my professional life. Because I always felt like I got that dialed in. There's nothing really I can do to make that better. And I got that wrong, because it's really gone into that side too. And I feel like my energy is more static throughout the day rather than these high spikes. I'm just really, really excited to see what I'm capable of doing. Going into my 40s as well, as a joke, my friend said I'm having a midlife crisis. This version of me would absolutely kick the ass of the 30-year-old version of me. I'd outrun him, I'd outlift him, I'd out-sustain him. And it's an amazing place to be. I'm really excited about turning 40 and moving into my 40s. And this has been a huge reason why. And it's great that my partner said, look, you just look great. And I'm proud to kind of see you like this. Not to say she didn't before, but she now makes fat jokes at my expense, which I was like, okay, well, I'm glad we've got there now that you're making these jokes, but there you go. So no, I think Jody, all round, there's not a facet of my life that hasn't had a positive change by committing to this program. And we're only getting going, because I don't know what's ahead of me, but even the fact that I'm about to run 42 kilometers in 50 days time sounds ridiculous, but I can absolutely see how the process kind of builds momentum and gets us to this point.
Have you had that goal in mind when you first started? Have you thought that you would be actually signing up for a 42 kilometers marathon in 6 months?
Not at all. And actually, I remember the day I told Nathan about this. I was about a month into the program and we were starting to see results. The weight was starting to drop off. And I was sitting there and I just worked out that at the end of April going into May, my mum would have turned 70. And I was just sitting there one day and I was feeling really good. I think I had the endorphins flying around from just getting back from the gym. And, they say you should never decide things after 10 o'clock in the evening. And this is exactly what I did. So I sat there and I was like, I want to do something testing to commemorate her by. And I don't know why. I just Googled when's the next nearest marathon, and around that time, and there's one in town just north of me in Milton Keynes that also had good reviews. And I was like, wow, it's the weekend after her birthday, and they had places. And in the space of 20 minutes, I signed up, registered, and then told a cancer charity that are really close to our heart that I was going to represent them in the run. And the next morning, my wife woke up and she said, how's your evening? I'm like, yeah, it's good. I've signed up for a marathon in 5.5 months' time, and I've told this charity I'm raising money for them, so there's no way out of this. And she's like, oh, good. Glad you didn't make any rush decisions while I was asleep. And I told Nathan, and he said, well, if it's important to you, we'll make it work. That was it. And again, it was incremental. I look at my numbers. That first month in November, I ran a total of 48 to 55 kilometers the whole month. By the end of this month, I would have run about 300. That's not because I'm like some sort of secret track runner underneath all of this. I'm fueling my body. I'm powering my body in a way that I wasn't before. And the results were in there, and I'm dragging them out. And I know I'm doing the work, but I'm doing it in a different body. And it's amazing. This body keeps giving me more and more than I thought I was capable of. I have no endurance background. Any sports I played were short, high intensity, high speed type. So I'm surprised at myself. And also the mental journey of spending that many hours running around on your own.
Yeah.
I do a lot of my running at nighttime after the kids are asleep. And it's brought me actually a real sense of calm. And again, with the purpose of it, to kind of honor my mum and do this in this way and to get the results for me personally. I think everything's kind of tied together. Saying that my original goal was, I said to Nathan, I would love to get into the kind of shape where I could do a high rocks. So that was actually the original goal of like, this is where I want to go to. I've added this detour, shall we say, but it's very much like, I'm going to get this done. I'm going to have a few days to recover, and then we're going to set course for this high rocks goal, because I still really want to do that. And the thing I love about Nathan with all of this as well, he does not prescribe to be some sort of running coach, but he's made this work for me. And, we've adjusted the plan, and I've had to do a lot of research into what running is and how this works and how this long endurance stuff works. And he's open to the challenge of, me saying to him, dude, you're killing me. I need more carbs. Like, I'm dying here. And him making those adjustments. And again, that's been massive. And that's why I say partnering, because he's willing to go away and go, you're right. Your results struggling here. You're struggling. If you don't have the energy to run multiple times a week, and that's what your goals are, we need to make the adjustment. So that's brilliant. And fair play to him, because it's not like I turned up on day one and said, I need you to help me run a marathon. I just threw that in there halfway. So yeah, fingers crossed, we're getting there. And even little things like, he's been a big reason I now get sports physio every 2 weeks, because he could see that, hey, look, you might break down and not make it to the start line. We got to get you to the start line. Those things, again, those added benefits of having someone look at your numbers, look at how you're feeling, and saying, based on all of this stuff, you need to go and get some, like a bit of a body MOT done, because it looks like you're at risk of an injury. So it's great. It's great having that voice in my corner.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And what did you learn from this journey so far that you did not know about, or you didn't have any information, or you thought like maybe misled information? We live thinking like something was correct, but then when we do it a different way, it feels different. It feels like, oh man, I was misinterpreted that. Yeah, misconception about something.
Yeah, it's a really good question, because I think there is so much misinformation out there. And I'll start with the first one, which is, especially being vegetarian, like, carbs are not the enemy. It's just how you use them. And also breakfast. I used to skip breakfast. I haven't eaten breakfast for like 18 years. And one of the first things Nathan did was like, you're bringing breakfast back. And I'm like, why? I don't need it. He goes, no, you do need it. And I'll show you why you need it, because look what you do at the other end of the day. You overeat. And so I think those are two things that just from the get-go of like, I have a much healthier relationship with carbs. I have a much healthier relationship with breakfast, and balancing my day out in that way. They were two things. And the third one was, really can lie to yourself that you have a balanced plate of food, that you're not overeating. The hidden food throughout our day, even little things like, I was drinking latte and thinking, that's no biggie. I was having like 4 or 5 lattes a day. And then, I've just made a slight switch. I just drink flat white now, and I drink less of it, and I don't drink any caffeine after 2 o'clock. And it's just this tiny little things. You like, acknowledged I ate these things. Then there was all this hidden stuff that I just didn't acknowledge that was happening every day. And I was like, holy moly, that's like a whole nother meal that I just kind of wasn't counting for. Probably the number one thing, he's got it on his socials. I'm a big advocate of it now. Like, my dad's seen me do it, and even he's been intrigued, is the single plate rule. Like, the way you set the plate up, being of Tamil descent, I'll tell you right now, a quarter of my plate was not rice. It was probably the other way around. And it was like, to just challenge that and go, no, we're going to balance this. And the other thing, which was a huge part, was somehow I was going to starve myself to lose weight. Yes, in the beginning, there was some hunger pains. That's hunger pains because I was too much. And as soon as that got through that wave, like, I've basically been on some form of calorie deficit for a few months now, but this hasn't felt I'm dieting. I actually hate the word dieting. People come up to me and go, are you dieting? I'm like, I don't know what you mean, because I'm not hungry. I'm eating and I'm working out and I'm living better, but I definitely don't consider this this dieting. And that's been a big one. Like, I actually don't think there's any room for that word. I think dieting is like a term, and everything that's kind of linked with it, this idea of cutting down on everything. I think the idea of dieting and everything that comes with notion and historically oppressing and cutting everything down and almost starving yourself to get results. I don't see that. That's not a reality that I've lived. I can now point to a huge data point of how I've lost weight without having to go hungry or be at a point where I can't perform, because that's the thing. I am trying to build a performance body for the goals that I have. So to do that, you've got to fuel right. And if you're not fueling right, you can't do these things again and again. So they were the big ones that I would say already on this program. I've had to like completely reset my opinion on these things. Yeah, it is misinformation. I think people have this fear of all these things, and it's just not rational, and it doesn't have to be that way.
Absolutely. That totally makes sense as well. Learning it the right way, you gain that knowledge that will be really valuable for you for the rest of your life. You know what I mean? This is what you will carry on, living your life, passing the torch to your children, and probably they living that healthy lifestyle as well, which is like really important. And that's what we're doing it for ourselves first, but also for our family. And yeah.
Big time. My eldest, he's seen a change in me, and he knows in the evening after he goes to bed that daddy's going to go and work out. And he asked me recently, goes, why does daddy work out so much? And I said, because I want to carry you for as long as I can. So some days when I'm putting him to sleep, he goes, all right, daddy, go work out, because I want him to carry me on my 5th birthday as well. And you're dead right. They see everything we do. And I want to set a good role model view for them as to what that looks like, because my parents grew up in a very rural environment. Their diet, their way of living was a very different world to the one I'm in now. And I didn't have that sort of role model to look at and say, this is how you work in a corporate world, have children, live in a city, get the balance right. And hopefully I could be that for them. And it's great. He's 4 years old. He's already noticing something around that.
Exactly. Yeah, that's truly amazing to hear. So that leads me to my last question, Ramesh, here before we wrap up, is that based from your experience so far with the program, weight loss, with changing of the goals, try to reach different limits as well, what would be like 3 tips that you would give to somebody who is just starting on this journey?
That's a really good question, Jody. I think number one is starts with yourself. And I think there's some humility and also being at the mercy of whatever you've done before has led you here. So come with a completely blank canvas. Leave all your preconceived ideas and what you believe to be true at the door, because if those things were true, you wouldn't be here right now. And be at the mercy of the program. Be at the mercy of your coach. Put them in the driving seat and build the trust with them. The trust might not come early, like straight away, because you just met them, but have some blind faith in that. So that would be the number one thing, because I think to not commit to this program would be doing you as an individual a massive disservice to find out what is true. I think that's number one. I think number two is, I'm kind of testament to this, is you don't know your body as well as you think you do. And if somebody tells you that I believe this can happen, they're saying that not because they know you, but they know lots of people like you who they've seen go through a transformation. And to detach yourself or to take that negativity away, that somehow you know your limitations, you know what you're capable of. You know what you're capable of in this body at this time with this mindset. The place you want to go, you don't know what that looks like yet, and trust that you are capable of doing far more than you think you can. And then the third one is, I think, the why. We talked about it earlier. Understand and work on your motivations, because this is not a sprint. Sorry to use a running analogy here, but this is not a sprint. This has to be a marathon, because this is about the rest of our lives. The people that join Autonomy are not 18, 21 years old. We have lived life, we've seen things, we've experienced things, and we're trying to find a better future. And therefore, trust the process. And even if you're not seeing the results, that doesn't matter. Trust the process and give it time, because that's what this whole thing's about. This is about how many good, healthy years we've got in front of us and making the most of that. Because I come back to using my mum as the analogy with this, is you just don't know how long you've got. And for however long you've got, you want to be the best version of yourself, for yourself, your family, for other people around you. So that would probably be the 3 things for me that I would say. If you haven't quite got that right, it's worth almost spending a little bit of time dealing with that before you even think about the results and all the outcomes and stuff, because it all starts from there for me.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, this is like really lovely to hear. And I'm pretty sure like anyone starting on a health journey would want to hear those tips, because we come into these journeys and like, sometimes you're intimidated. Sometimes you don't know what to expect. Sometimes you don't know like if this information is correct, because there's so many out there. So you feel like, what is right, what's wrong. So it's always beneficial to get that perspective from somebody as successful as you are right now, and who's going on to a marathon next month, which I'll be checking on you next month and see how things are going.
For sure, for sure. I'm going to be definitely storing Autonomy on the finish line with my medal. I can already visualize it now. I'm going to make it happen.
That's awesome to hear. Awesome to hear, man. Well, it was lovely to chat with you, Ramesh. I really appreciate you taking your time off of your Friday afternoon to do this, my man.
No, my pleasure. Really great chatting to you. I've got to go get some kilometers under my belt now before I go home to the kids. So that's what I'm going to be doing next.
That's the spirit. All right. Get those miles in.
Nice one, Jody. Take care of yourself.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure to chat with you.